All right, welcome to Closers Are Losers today.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Closers Are Losers. It's me and the man, the myth, the legend, the one-legger bandit.
He's got 17 names, aliases that he goes by, depending on what country he's in for the week. I'm just joking.
I do.
He's the
My
CEO.
Kaiser Sose.
I am with our COO of the company, Mr. James Sackle.
Just holding down the fort here today, filling in for Matt while he's on holidays. So hopefully I can come on and impart some wisdom.
Remember, if you're still using old school dinosaur sales and closing techniques from the stone ages of selling, you are losing sales that you could be making.
These neuro-emotional persuasion questions. We teach you to have the right tonality that put your prospects at ease, eliminate sales pressure, and get them to persuade themselves. What a novel idea. Matt, are you ready for this podcast?
Welcome to Closers Are Losers. We did it. We reached our first 100 episodes, all because of you, our audience. Now, as a reward for you, we've created a montage that features some of the best content that we've ever had on the podcast from some of our better guests that you have liked, that you've made the most comments on, that have helped you the most. So we want to thank you for all of your support. And here's to the next 100 shows. I will tell you, the next 100 shows are going to take you to a complete new level. So if you're a business owner, it's going to take your sales team to a new next level. If you're a sales executive, a leader, a sales manager, it's going to help you manage your salespeople to get to the next level. If you're an individual salesperson and you want to sell more of your products and services, these next 100 shows are going to take you to a new level that most salespeople only dream about. Cue the intro. Enjoy. What's one of the most important questions every salesperson should be asking the prospect?
How much research have you done?
Why is that? Tell us what that does.
I'll tell you why, man. This is so big, Jeremy. This is you can wake me out of a dead sleep and I'll still come up with that answer. How much research have you done? There's three categories.
Yeah.
There's none, some, and ton. Let's go through them. If the person's done no research, that's it. That's dead in the water. Because why would they reach out to you? Let's just assume they found you on the internet, they reached out without doing some research. Yeah. So the person who's done no research has no idea of price. There's no price anchor of what the services cost.
Yeah.
So it's too much risk there. So I hate that prospect, that lead.
Yeah.
Then there's some that say, well, I've done some. Now I can dig into that one. Well,
okay.
When you say some, let's walk through it.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that, right? Now, the person who's done a ton, I just tried to make them all rhyme. Some, none, some, ton. Yeah. So the one who's done a ton, we love those. Because if they've done a ton of research and they've contacted you, they've pretty much pre-qualified themselves.
Yeah.
And that one's going to have the highest close rate. Love the some.
Yeah.
Really love the ton. Hate the none.
I love that, dude.
Most of us watching high-end coaching packages.
Yeah.
And myself or Tony and people, I obviously love Tony, love the events. People go there, they're all pumped up, mindset. And Tony's got mastery and skills of his communication, but people go there and they really get the state management piece.
Yeah.
They really aren't getting the linguistic piece. And he talks about it, but people get fired up and they get super passionate and excited. He says, live with passion. They knock on those doors, they answer the phone, they're super excited. And that creates resistance. We say only two people are excited to talk to you, your family, ideally, and salespeople. And so,
well, not even your family in our day and age. Let's be real, right? If you're pitching something to your family, they're like, whoa, it's Jeremy pitching something again, right?
Yeah. So you're saying they should not be super excited.
Well, let me just ask all your listeners here. I want you to think about it yourself, because we're all taught by the gurus, you got to be super excited about your product and service. And if you show them your enthusiasm about what you're selling, that somehow magically they're just going to get excited as well and just magically want to buy what you're offering. How's that working out for you? So I want you to think about it. You walk into a car dealership, or you go to Best Buy, or you go to a retail store or anything, and the salesperson comes out and is really excited that you're there. And they say, Eli, we've got the greatest deal in town. We're so happy that you came in. We know that we're going to get you the best car. And over here, we've got this car. And they start talking about all the great things it does. How do you typically react?
Creates resistance, as you say.
You do one of two things. This is what human behavior does. Write this down. You do one of two things. You either push back you throw out objections, and you reject what the salesperson's offering. Raise your hand if that ever happens to you. Or the second way a human responds to that, a different type of personality, is you say, that's interesting. Can you leave me some information? That sounds really good. I tell you what, I need to think it over, talk to my spouse. Can you call me back in a week, a month, a year later? And then when you call them back, they magically don't respond, and you leave them a message and they never call you back, and they go into, witness protection mode. Has that ever happened?
Of course.
Now, the reason why that happened is because of the way you've been taught how to communicate to that buyer triggered that resistance in their mind.
What would I say to somebody that says, hey, I want to write some copy that's directed to salespeople about how to get out of sales slumps? And I started thinking, like, why are sales slumps even a thing? Like, why does a salesperson actually get into a sales slump? And what I messaged him back was this. I said, look, I can show you how to help people get out of sales slumps, but what I would rather do is teach them the right skills that prevent them from really ever having sales slumps, because sales slumps are caused by ineffective selling, right? And I know me and you talk about this. When you have a duplicatable process, when you have A, B, C, and you follow a duplicatable process on every single sales call, you get predictable results from that. When you're out there winging it and you're just kind of going through the motions and changing it up all the time with your different prospects because you don't know what really works and what doesn't, that's when stuff like sales slumps actually happen. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I actually had a coaching call with one of our guys last night. He just had some questions, and he said to me, he goes, what if you just know someone's in? Can you kind of skip some of the processes? And I was like, no, never. I was like, that's a trap. It's very difficult to identify correctly, especially the first time you're talking to someone, what like genuine buyer language is or what is perceived to be buyer language.
Yeah.
And so, which goes back to exactly what you said, which is process. Like, you have to follow your process. I don't care if it's a referral. I don't care if it's your best friend. I don't care if it's, someone you knew from high school that you're now selling into a program, or a guy just off the street, or a guy you perceive to be wealthy.
Right.
It's just do the process, man. Eliminate variables.
Yeah. It's so true.
I want to talk a little bit more about this. You're an established thought leader in the field of personal branding as well. Okay. Your advice, what defines a strong personal brand, and how can a salesperson brand themselves? So they're working for a company. How do they brand themselves to stand out in this ultra competitive environment?
Building brand awareness is a daily challenge, and it's certainly not something that happens overnight, Jeremy. It's not a quick hit. It's a slow build. And LinkedIn, Facebook, all of the platforms obviously working in concert to help build brand through increased visibility, increased contact and connection with a established community. We get farther away from this notion of just prospecting or cold messaging people at this point when we're more community oriented. So a brand builds ideally through our own professional network first. And on LinkedIn, everything I've ever espoused relative to the building, the managing, and the leveraging of a personal brand has to do with the way we represent ourselves on LinkedIn, how we message people, how we comport ourselves in our interactions. And one thing that COVID has certainly driven home is the importance of being accountable and showing up better on your Zoom calls, on your phone calls. At every email, I look at every voicemail, I look at every direct message, I look at every in-mail, I look at every point of contact, what we in sales call touch points, as an opportunity to build brand.
I love that.
Alec Baldwin was wrong. In Glengarry Glen Ross, ABC does not stand for always be closing, because as we know, closers are losers. Exactly. It stands for always be contracting. Have little agreement, little agreement, little agreement, little agreement. By the time you get to the end, you only have a little agreement, which is so, or well, or what would you like to do next? And the decision then has already been made because you've contracted for that.
Yeah, it's always be committing. Yeah, I love it. I like it. We were speaking the same language, though, 100%.
Excellent.
Yeah, a lot of things wrong with the Alec Baldwin movie. Definitely old school training, right? Always be closing. All it does is typically put sales pressure on the person you're talking to. And so all they're going to do is resist you. Even though they might have problems that you can actually solve, that resistance triggers them to react certain ways to that salesperson where they don't want to engage.
Well, this is a really important rule. You can never blame a prospect for doing something to you never said he could not do.
Yeah.
If you create the conditions for an objection, which is 100% of the time, objections occur because salespeople create the condition for the objection to arise.
100%.
If you do that, then shame on you.
Before I started using NEPQ, I had a separate phone because I knew that I would get a certain amount of deals that would fall through on the weekend. And like, I didn't want to have to deal with that because there's nothing I could do about it. And so it would just stress me out. You know, I was commission only. I was making about $2,000 commission per sale. And I would, you know, sell about 6 to 7 per week. Or no, probably that stage was probably like 3 to 4 per week. And then I would have 1 or 2 fall through. And I would just be at dinner on a Saturday night, go, I just lost $4,000. Sweet, amazing. Thanks for coming. And I'd be in a crap mood for the rest of the day. And it was almost always, hey, had a chat with my wife and she's not cool with it.
Yeah, you're done. Yeah, you're done. It's hard to get that back for sure. So it's a huge concern. I would say it's one of the biggest objections that salespeople get. And they're so bad at helping people overcome it when it can be so easy. It doesn't matter what you sell. It's like now, you know, on Saturday nights, Matt, you can just go to dinner with your wife, your family. You don't have to worry about things because people you talk to Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday that signed up or whatever for your products or service, you're not worried about them canceling because they persuaded themselves rather than you trying to persuade them.
Exactly. Now I'm getting referrals.
Yeah.
You know, same time, hey, my wife wants to sign up for friends. Sweet. Sounds good. Okay. So step one, like first of all, where does a partner objection actually come from? Like, what's it a symptom of? I think is probably important to find out.
There's a couple of things. It just depends. And obviously it's a little bit different if you're B2C or B2B, right? If you're B2B, the partner concern might be just the business partner rather than if you're B2C, it might be this husband or wife, right? So it comes with one of two things. Either one, they're really, really interested, like they want to do it, but they have some type of rule with their spouse where they talk things over before they make a big financial decision. Now, that's not like if you're selling magazines door to door that are $10 a month. We're talking about, higher end products, right? That over $1,000, let's say. Or if you haven't pulled out enough need because your questioning skills really suck in the sales conversation, and you haven't helped them see that they have problems they didn't even know they had before they started talking to you. So if you don't know how to do those type of things, it's just a way for them to get rid of you, okay? So you have to be able to read their tonality and their body language, or even their tonality. And you by reading their tonality and even their body language, it really helps you determine like what category they're in. But most of the time, if you're getting the objection like, oh, this sounds really good, but I need to talk to my spouse, it's because you haven't pulled out enough need for them to feel attached to the problem enough where they feel like they have to take urgency now to solve that. And that's really your selling skills.
Yeah, and it's an appeal to a third party that's not there. So it's the ultimate deflection.
Yeah.
And so I think you've got to have a tool where you can get through whether it's a genuine logistical partner objection or just a deflection.
A lot of people, they fail because they talk about themselves. I was just recently talking to someone, I can't remember who it was. I think it was another sales trainer. And they brought up to my attention, they were like, listen, when my salespeople are having problems because they keep talking about themselves, they don't give a shit who you are. They don't care. They already know the name of your company and they know everything you're about. What they're looking for is a connection, or looking for an expert to tell them what to do, how they should go about making that system or product or service work out for them.
Yeah.
That's what they're looking for. So when you have someone, and a lot of salespeople, they have an objection, or they'll go, me too. They'll try to agree too much with a buyer. And I'm like, I went through something similar, Jeremy, and I know exactly how you feel. No, this is how you develop being an expert.
Yeah.
Is you talk about, Jeremy, I had someone that I helped years ago with a very similar issue. Sure. Would you like to learn how I helped them?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, nobody cares about you. Like, I love the salespeople that have the presentations, and they have the picture of the corporate office, and here's our corporate office, and here's a picture of my family. Like, nobody cares.
Yeah, no one cares.
All they care about is, can you solve their problems and get results? If they feel like you can, they're going to go with you.
They don't care about anything else.
They don't care. I mean, and that would probably support some of the information and the knowledge out there today of why people are learning so much about EQ, emotional intelligence, and how much science plays into today's world.
A lot of people would ask me, like, I was in 4 different industries in my 17-year sales career, and I would come in and I would notice so many people were burned out, and I would be with that company for the next 3 years, and people would like need to take time off, and they would need to do this and like all these things. And everybody always asked me, like, how are you so like dedicated? Like, how are you so disciplined? And I'm like, well, I don't go into a boxing match every day. Because if I went into a boxing match every day like all of you, then I'd get burned out too, and I'd have to take time off, and I'd have anxiety and frustration and stress about not paying my bills because I wasn't making very much money as a salesperson. But because I know how to get the prospect to persuade themselves and help them find problems they didn't think they had before we even had the first call, it causes them to view me as more of an expert or a trusted authority rather than just another salesperson who's trying to stuff the solution down their throat. And then they commoditize you. So because of that, I can come in every day and do the same thing because I enjoy helping people find and solve their problems. It's actually enjoyable. What's been your experience? Like, if you've made that mindset shift, because it's not just a mindset shift, it's also a skill level shift. You can have the perfect mindset, but if you don't know the skills or the questions, you're not going to sell that much either.
Oh yeah, 100%. It doesn't feel like work to me. It feels like I'm just having a conversation. And at the end of the conversation, like, they solve their problem. As a bonus, they want to pay me. I was like, okay.
Well, yeah, you get paid well to solve problems, right? Everybody wants to get results. Like, they want to be here, right? All selling is how good you are at change. It's about how good you are at helping your prospects see that changing their situation and purchasing what you offer, your solution, is far less riskier than them doing nothing at all, staying in the status quo, and their problems never get solved, which is more risky. And when you're able to help them see that through your questioning skills that we teach in our advanced, NEPQ 3.0 trainings and our Inner Circle advanced trainings that we do, the virtual training courses, then selling becomes pretty enjoyable.
Yeah.
Pretty profitable, I've heard. All right, good. Why tonality is so important. It's not just the questions we train you in the NEPQ virtual training courses and the group coachings, that we do for all of our clients, but it's also the tonality on how we train you how to ask the right question, but how you're asking it, how you're delivering it, and really like verbal pausing and those things. So why does that make such a difference?
It lowers those defenses. If I ask you something with a more assertive or assumptive language, immediately the sales resistance raises and the walls go up. And you can hear it, you can see it if you're on Zoom. And so those verbal pauses and just really like embodying I'm here to help. If I get the sale, cool, but like, I'm here to find out if there is a problem. The problem finder mentality that you always talk about.
Yeah. So that's your attitude. You're not there to like crush it over their head just to make a bunch of commissions. Although really internally, you keep that internally to yourself. Obviously you're there to make sales because you know that if if the prospect doesn't purchase what you're offering, that their problems are not going to get solved, right? They're going to stay in the status quo and nothing's ever going to change for them. Whereas your solution that you offer is going to change them, right? For the better. So we have to keep that inside of us though, internally. And instead, like Kelsey's talking about, we now look at ourselves as more problem finders and problem solvers rather than product pushers, right?
How do you fine tune your craft? Like once you get good at selling, you're making a good income. How do you go to the next level? Like how do you improve to sell even more?
I think there's a couple of key ways. One is getting context outside of your own environment. A lot of the best sales professionals I've learned from have either had jobs in many different industries or outside of sales and came into sales later. And they now have a context that most sales professionals struggle with, right? They don't know how to think like a buyer, how to think like an engineer or their end consumer. They have no concept of what it's like to be on that receiving end. And so they struggle. Or maybe they've always sold software and software sales are done a certain way. And, they have no concept of what it's like to sell hardware. So if they go and learn from somebody who sells hardware, it's going to shake some things loose in their brain, some new ideas, some ways to change up the old game and stop doing what everybody else is doing. Because that's really the trap you fall into is, well, everybody else at my company is doing X. Well, cool. You should try Y. You should at least test it out. You owe it to yourself to become a top performer. You got to do something slightly different and experiment on it. And the final thing I had to suggest here is constantly iterating. When I first learned how to sell and I was learning how to memorize a script, I would continue to adapt my script. I would notice, all right, I get stuck about midway through my introduction. Why do I get stuck there? Okay, well, let me try some different language. Okay, well, now I'm getting stuck on the turn here, right when I want to ask them for something, right? And you keep improving those little bits along the way, those incremental improvements, and you will see an outsized impact on your results.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's really the art and science. It's really being dedicated to your craft, because if you've got your sales structure written down and you notice, like you said in your introduction, that a lot of times they maybe start peppering you like, what's this all about? Or what's this? You're like, okay, what am I saying there? Instead of blaming the prospect, because most sales people just blame, like, oh, buyers are liars, or they don't have the budget. They just blame. You have to look at ourselves and be like, what am I doing wrong? Like, what question am I not asking in the beginning, or what am I saying that's triggering them to resist so early on? Or when I ask what we call commitment questions at the end, not really closing, but let's say closing for everybody's sake. When I ask this closing question, I get this objection. So I need to change this around and to eliminate that objection from happening, objection prevention. How do you learn the right skills or the right questions to ask in that conversation that prevent objections from even happening, right? That's when you hear people say, oh, the more objections they give you, the more interest they have. Really? Is that really true? Like, is there any data on that? Because if you ever have, as well, when you sold alarms or whatever you sold, B2B, that the easiest sales you had were people that didn't have any objections.
They were laydowns.
Right? They were just laydowns. So how can somebody be more interested that has more objections? No, the truth is the more objections you get, the less likely they are to buy. So you have to learn the right questions to ask in that conversation that prevents most of those objections from even happening. And if they do bring in an objection, how do you get them to overcome their own objection, right? You have to learn those skills. Hey guys, if you enjoy these, here's another you can watch right over here. Join our free Sales Revolution group. Click the link below, join us, and we're gonna help you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you real soon.